Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and today is July 1st, which means tomorrow is the start of SUMMERWEEN. If you are not familiar, SUMMERWEEN is a week-long readathon hosted by two booktubers, Gabby at the channel Gabby Reads and Olivia at Olivia Reads a Latte. As you can probably gather by the title of the readathon, the aim is to really bring the essence of Halloween to the summertime, specifically with the goal of reading, spooky books. I am very excited to be participating this week. I am going to use this week as an opportunity to read actually all of the thrillers that I have on my TBR. I'm really making a big effort this year to read all of the books on my physical TBR, and right now I actually don't have all that many mystery thrillers that I haven't already read, so that's a good sign, but I do have 5. So the books that I'm going to be reading this week, I have a couple of brand new releases. So the first is called The Other Black Girl by Zakaya Delilah Harris. I believe this actually takes place within like the book publishing world, and it has something to do with one black girl dealing with another black girl at her workplace or something like that. I haven't looked too much into the synopsis, but it's a brand new release and a black mystery thriller I'm definitely interested in reading. And then the other new release that I want to get to right away is called Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Imide. I believe this is a mystery thriller set at like a private school. I have seen a ton of amazing reviews about this, and so I'm again really excited to get into it. And then the next book that I want to get to is not a brand new release, but was released in 2020, and it's Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I believe this is kind of like an apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic type story about this family who I think is staying in like an Airbnb or something, and something happens to the world, power goes out, emergency kind of state happens, and the owners of the Airbnb come home, and I think it's like this weird dynamic of figuring out, like, are they who they say they are? What's happening out in the rest of the world? Are they just trying to survive? This is a really short book, so I'm really interested to see where it goes from there, because that's all I've heard about the synopsis. Zoe from the channel Zoe Delaney read this book, and she had good things to say about it. So I picked this up when I was at a used bookstore recently, and so I'm excited to knock it out now. And then the final 2 books that I want to get to are backlist titles, both by the same author. It's The Woman in Cabin 10 and One by One, both by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is a pretty popular mystery thriller author. I've read all of her books except for these 2, and I believe this is one of her earlier releases, and One by One is her most recent release. This one has to do with I think these people who are on like a ship and someone sees someone else go overboard, and when they try to report it, the woman never existed or something like that. And then One by One is like an isolated closed circle of mystery about this corporate group who's on this retreat in the mountains. I think like an avalanche happens and they all get trapped in one spot, and I'm sure someone turns up dead and they're trying to figure out who is the killer before more people show up dead. So I really have quite the spectrum of books here, and I'm excited to get into them. I think at least 3 of them I have audiobooks for, so I'm actually pretty confident that I'm going to be able to finish all 5 books within a week. It's also obviously 4th of July weekend, so there are all kinds of festivities happening where I'm at, so I'm sure there will be a lot of footage of that, of parades and fireworks and whatever else is going on. But yeah, with that, let's get right into the vlog. Like I mentioned, today is the 1st. The readathon technically doesn't start until the 2nd, which is tomorrow, so I won't start reading until tomorrow, but I did want to film this intro while I had a second so that tomorrow I can hit the ground running and get started right away with my books. Checking in to say happy Friday, happy SUMMERWEEN. The readathon has officially started. It is Friday evening, and I have a little update because I have started my first book. I am about 100 pages into The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, and I have to say we're off to a good start because I'm really liking it so far. Like I said with the brief synopsis of this book, it's a mystery thriller. We're following this young woman who is on a cruise for her work. She's like a journalist who does travel articles or whatever, and she's on this cruise, and it's a really small ship. There are only 10 cabins on it, so only 10 like rooms for people to sleep. So I think something like 20 guests on the cruise, then some staff. But while she is sleeping one night, she hears what she thinks is somebody being thrown overboard, and she goes out to check, and she thinks she sees a body sinking in the ocean. And so she calls like security, whatever, and she's reporting this, and she says she thinks it was the girl next door, the woman in cabin 10. And then she's told that there's actually no one staying in cabin 10, and there's no record of this woman having ever been on the ship, even though our main character had met her and interacted with her. So that's the basic synopsis, and that's about where I am in the book. Like I mentioned, I'm really liking it. This book started with like a really intense scene and really action-packed, kind of fast pacing, and so it sucked me in right away. I will say this is an unreliable narrator. She's going through some stuff on the cruise. She's drinking a lot, and so she's just made out to be really unreliable to us, which is not my favorite trope, but so far it's going okay. And then I will also say, when I added this book on my Goodreads as currently reading, I did accidentally look at some reviews. I try not to look at any reviews of books that I'm reading because I don't want to be, you know, spoiled, or I don't want to have my opinion be tainted or biased by what I read, but I accidentally looked at some, and I have seen a lot of reviews that say that people really like the beginning of this book and then it goes downhill. So I'm really hoping that that's not the case for me and that I continue liking where it goes, but of course I will update as I get further in. Since I have 5 books to read in 7 days, it's definitely important that I stay ahead of my reading early on, I think, and so I will be trying to finish, maybe not finish this whole book tonight, but get a lot more of a chunk done in it tonight, so that hopefully tomorrow I can finish this book and start a new one. I think that would be pretty good to stay on schedule. Unfortunately, tomorrow is going to be a very busy day. It's Saturday and the day before the 4th of July, so tomorrow is when like our town has a lot of the festivities going on and things like that, so I'm sure it'll be busy, but I'll do what I can to read when I can, and basically we'll check in with more reading updates as I have them. Hello, happy 4th of July. It is Sunday today. Yesterday ended up being very busy, as I'm sure I kind of showed you, with a parade and hanging out with neighbors and just spending time outside and with friends and family. And on top of that, I did finish The Woman in Cabin 10. So let's talk about it. I actually enjoyed it for what it is. I thought it was perfectly entertaining and kind of what I was looking for. Was it the most original and surprising and twisty thriller I've ever read? No, but I didn't really go into it expecting that. I think if you go in expecting and looking for an isolated closed circle mystery, which is just what it is, then you'll be satisfied. It definitely falls into the trope in the way that all of the characters are seemingly suspicious. You know, everyone kind of has a motive. Nobody is totally cleared. Our protagonist is unreliable, but at the end of the day, I had fun reading it. I was entertained. I wanted to get to the end to figure out, you know, what the actual solution was, and I was generally satisfied. Now, it didn't change my life or anything. It's not a new favorite book, so I'm gonna rate it 3 stars, but I'm happy I at least wasn't totally disappointed by it. You know, it didn't fall completely flat. I think because I tempered my expectations a little bit. So I guess that would be my recommendation. Go into this expecting what it is, especially if you are someone who likes Ruth Ware as an author and wants to read all of her backlist. I think this is definitely worth a read, but I think it's kind of well known that this isn't her best work by any means. I also last night was able to start the next book. I'm gonna read The Other Black Girl. I'm about 50 pages into it so far. And again, synopsis. So we are following our main character, Nella. She works at a publishing house as like an editor's assistant, and she is currently the only black woman in the office, or black person in the whole office, until one day another black woman is hired, and Nella is really excited because she has been working to promote diversity in the workplace and trying to get her company to, you know, hire more diverse people. And so she's really excited to have this other black woman working with her to hopefully help her in those efforts. But pretty early on, we start to get the sense that things might not be what they seem with this other Black girl. I'm not exactly sure what it is that's amiss, but I'm starting to get the sense that we can't necessarily trust this other girl, or we don't know if she's going to be on the same page as our main character in terms of diversity and embracing their diversity and things like that. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. Hoping to finish this, I mean, today would be great, but by tomorrow for sure, I think is the plan. Today being the actual 4th of July, we have a few other plans going on, so I will read this when I get a chance and update when I have an update. But next time I see you, I should hopefully have a pretty good update on that book. Okay, I am back with reading updates. It is the morning of July 6th today, so it's been a couple more days. Yesterday I did finish The Other Black Girl, and right after I finished this book, I spent a lot of time reading and watching other people's reviews and discussions of this book, specifically readers of color, because this obviously deals with a lot of racial issues and conversations, and while I had my own thoughts come up as I read it, I obviously cannot speak to the authenticity of this representation or relate to the issues at hand in here. And so I want to make sure that my thoughts that I'm about to say are in line with what other reviewers of color are saying. That's not to say that all Black readers have the same opinions either. Obviously, I've seen a range of opinions. So let's get into my thoughts. I really enjoyed reading this book. And it's one of those books, I've said this a lot, where it's weird to say you enjoy it because it's not a happy book. It's not about a great, Black person's experience. And so enjoy isn't the right word necessarily, but I was completely engrossed in the story. I wanted to know what would happen, and my eyes and ears were fully open to the conversations that this was having about, this Black person's experience in the workplace and racial issues we still have, very prevalently in our country, our world, etc. This is the type of book that is not a in-your-face mystery thriller with twists going on everywhere and these heart-pounding scenes. It's not that type of mystery thriller, nor is it supposed to be, but that doesn't mean that it's not still a mystery thriller book at heart. Actually, the very intro quote of this book was pointed out in a discussion video that Gabby had on her channel. She actually chose this book as her book club pick for her book troop book club, and she had Jessie from Bow Ties on Books on her channel to discuss the book. That discussion was amazing. I highly recommend watching it if you've read this book, and so I will link it below. But anyway, the quote at the start of this book is "Black history is Black horror" by Tananarive Due from Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror. And so that's basically saying that just because a white person doesn't find this story horrific or a Black person's life horrific doesn't mean it's not. Their reality is that they've had to deal with some horrific things in their history and in their everyday life that we can't possibly relate to or understand. And so it's not our place to say what it can or can't be classified as. So setting the tone and the scene with that in mind, I think that should help some readers go into this with the right expectations. I did still find plenty of parts in this book to be creepy and scary and put me kind of on edge, but moving away from that discussion and into some other discussions that this book has, like I mentioned in the synopsis, it has a lot to do with our main character kind of handling and grappling with this other Black girl coming into her workspace and how that changes the dynamic of the workplace. There are instances where our main character, while she goes in with good intentions of wanting to, accept this other Black person and she hopes that it'll improve their overall work experience, there are some things that happen that make her view her coworker with a competitive and jealous lens. That was a really interesting discussion and something that I can relate to on a very, very small and different scale. Again, in no way am I comparing my experiences to people of color in the workplace or saying that I understand, but being a woman in the STEM industry, I have seen a little bit of where women will kind of be hypercritical of other women, and seeing one woman succeed sometimes makes other women feel like they can't succeed. And I know that that is only magnified when it comes to women of color, but it was something that when I read it in this book, I was absolutely not going to say that that's not true, that that's not valid, that that doesn't happen, because I've seen it again in my experiences. And so of course that would happen, you know, on an even bigger level with people of color. I really hope that all of this is coming out competently and I'm doing this book justice. But again, I would direct you to some other discussions about this book. I will link the ones that I've watched below. And then lastly, I just kind of want to point out some criticisms of this book, because I also see and agree with people who are saying this isn't a perfect book. This book does have a pretty big twist or reveal towards the end of the book that kind of brings to light what was going on the whole time. And there's been plenty of criticism about, was that a good twist? Was that a cheap twist? You know, what was it? I kind of saw it coming. I knew what direction we were going in, so it didn't completely catch me off guard, and so I was kind of expecting it. And so for that, I think I mostly enjoyed it and kind of respected what it was doing and saying and how it shaped the story. I'd love to actually discuss the twist itself with anyone who's read the book and wants to discuss it, you know, in the comments or wherever. And then the other piece that's gotten criticism in this book is that we are mainly following our main character Nella, but we also get chapters of perspectives of other characters, and it takes a very long time for you to understand who those other characters are and why they're important to the story. I definitely did struggle with that as I was reading this book, struggling to care about those chapters, because until I understand who they are and how they're impacting our main character, it felt a little meaningless. And I think probably some of the important things that were revealed or said early on in the book in those chapters were probably forgotten and lost by me, because I just didn't know what to hold on to from those. So with all that being said, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I definitely think I would like to reread this book in the future. Again, because of things that are revealed at the end of this book, I think that it makes a big difference to the beginning of the book, and I think that it would help a lot of it come together to me, and I think it would actually be more interesting to read the second time around, which is not something I say often. I really don't reread a lot of books, but this is one I could see myself rereading in the future. So we will see when that day comes. But I'm really glad that I finished that. Like I said, it is the 6th today, so it's day 4 of the readathon, meaning I only have 3 days left. Wait, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. It's day 5 of the readathon, so I only have today and 2 more days to finish all the books that I want to finish. Luckily, I have a lot less going on in personal life, so I should hopefully still be able to do it. But I have 3 books left to read, and I think I'm going to go ahead and start with Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. This is the shortest book that I have on the TBR, so I think it'll be good to just go ahead and knock this one out today. I have not started it yet, so I don't have any thoughts to give you or any more of a synopsis to give, so I will wait until I am further into this book or maybe finish it before I let you know. But that is my plan, is to go ahead and dive into this book next. Hey guys, Editing Jordan here. You will hear my son's swing music in the background, so I apologize for that, but I'm not getting up to turn it off because it's keeping him asleep. So I wanted to come on here because I either forgot to film a clip about Leave the World Behind, or I did film it but now don't have it. So let me tell you my thoughts about this book really quick. So I unfortunately did not love it. It was a very fast read, not only because it was a super short book, but also the way it was written. It did keep you flipping the pages. What I didn't like about it is that it explained absolutely nothing, which I very much hate in books. I like for my mystery thrillers to be explained, and I know there are 2 types of people, people who like that and people who don't. And so if you're the type of person who likes unexplained thriller horror books, then I think you would probably really like this. I would actually recommend this for sure to fans of the book A Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This book felt so similar to that one, in my opinion, and I gave that book 2 stars, and I'm giving this book 2 stars. Unfortunately, this one just did not work for me. I needed more answers. I needed more something to get me invested, but it just wasn't there. So that's a bummer, but I am at least happy that it wasn't that long of a book, and so I don't feel like I wasted that much of my time. But back to the video with better quality footage and better book discussions. Hello, everybody. It is 7:30 a.m. on Thursday, July 8th. So it is the last day of SUMMERWEEN. If it seems like I haven't been updating you very much, it's because I haven't. It's because life is a little crazy right now. Life with 2 kids under 2 is no joke. Plus I've been reading a lot, which is great. But when I'm actually reading, it's hard to update on reading in between all of the other crazy life things going on. And today is a little bit extra crazy, extra special because today is the day that my husband's paternity leave ends. So he is back at work for the first time today since having our second baby, which means that today is my first day home alone with the 2 kids, which is really exciting, obviously, because I love spending time with them, but it's a little nerve-wracking because they are a lot to handle. So we'll see how it goes. But I am off to a good start because it's 7:30 and right now they're both sleeping. As you can tell, I actually got a chance to like get ready, which has not really been happening, but since I knew I would have to be, up early, my husband's not able to wake up with them and let me sleep in or anything, I figured let's just get a jump start. Let's be up early. I'll probably be tired later, maybe take a nap, but we are off to a good start. Also off to a good start because last night I did finish One by One by Ruth Ware, which means I read this in a day, which was the goal. Honestly, I'm impressing myself throughout this whole readathon how quickly I'm getting through these books. I did have the audiobook for this one, which helped a lot because obviously I was able to listen to it while doing other things around the house. This is another isolated closed circle mystery by Ruth Ware, just like The Woman in Cabin 10, which I read earlier this week. But this follows a group of professionals who all work for the same tech company. Their company is basically this Spotify-like music app, but they're all in the mountains for a corporate retreat. There's 10 of them. And an avalanche happens, which strands them all in this chalet that they're staying at. And then of course people start turning up dead. I am really glad that I read this book after reading The Woman in Cabin 10 because like I said, I enjoyed that one and I enjoyed this one more. I think that Ruth Ware improved as a writer between that book and this book, which obviously you would hope is the case from older releases to newer releases. So I just felt like the pacing of this book was really spot on, and like the progression from the setup of the story to kind of the first incidents happening to when you find out what's happening and then still having, some action at the end. I thought it all just worked really nicely together. And then what I also liked about this book is it's a murder mystery where yes, everyone has a motive, but I really enjoyed that so many of the motives were business driven. And I think that's something that you're either going to like or not like about this book. I've seen reviews of people saying that they liked all the business talk and they're talking about like investments and shares. So if you're into that, I think you'll enjoy it, and it's kind of fun to read about like a techie millennial type company. Or I've also seen reviews saying that people really did not like that part. And I didn't know which way I would land, but to me it was really refreshing and a breath of fresh air to not be reading about people whose motives are because they're all cheating on each other and they're all involved in each other's personal lives and things like that. Don't get me wrong, there's like a little bit of that because obviously they all work together, their lives are intertwined, but for the most part these people's motives are business and money driven, which I think is not something I've read over and over again, and I think it's actually realistic and plausible. So with all that being said, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I don't know if a book like this with the isolated closed circle mystery, because it is still so formulaic and somewhat predictable, what the story is going in. I don't know if something like that can ever be 5 stars for me because I love for my thrillers to be, surprising. But by giving this 4 stars, I'm saying that for what it is, I think it did it pretty much as well as it could have. So I'm so happy that I really enjoyed it. And so that means that I am down to my last book. I only have Ace of Spades left to read based on my original TBR for this readathon. It's both a good and bad thing that this is the book that I left for last. Bad because it's the longest book out of all of them. It's over 400 pages, which is not like incredibly long in the whole spectrum of books, but for me, I don't read a whole lot of books over 400 pages. Most of mine are within that like 300 to 350 range. And also I don't have an audiobook for this book. So I'm going to have to read it all physically, which could be a challenge again with the 2 little kiddos that I have to spend my time taking care of. They don't leave a lot of time for physical reading. But the good news is because this is a YA book, the writing is pretty big and pretty spaced out, so it should read quickly quickly as I'm reading it physically. So I am really, really, really hoping that I'm able to finish this today. If I do, obviously I will let you know. Even if I don't, I'm not planning on uploading this video until Tuesday. So there is a small chance that I could finish this book actually after the readathon, but I will still include my thoughts in this vlog. So that's the plan. I'm really excited to get into the last book. Hope I love it and ready to knock out the end of this readathon and have a really good last day. All right, final update time. You guys, I did it. I stayed up pretty late, but I did manage to finish Ace of Spades within the time of the readathon, which is awesome. So I can happily give my review of it now. You guys, I thought it was really good. Like I said, I've seen a lot of hype surrounding this book lately, and that can be a little intimidating when you're going into a book that a lot of people are loving, because obviously if you don't like it, then you feel like you're the unpopular opinion. You don't know if your thoughts are valid. But then if you do end up liking it, you're like, am I just buying into the hype? Is it really that good? You guys, I think this is really that good. I think it's worth all of the hype that it's getting. It's different from any other mystery thriller I've read recently. It's relevant and hits on topics and issues that most mystery thrillers don't touch on. I think that this is different from the other Black Girl in the sense that it does read a lot more like a thriller, in my opinion, or at least like a stereotypical thriller with tension and twists and cliffhangers and whatnot. I think that for being a young adult thriller, it didn't come off as stereotypically young adult. What I typically don't like in YA thrillers is that the stakes always feel really low. YA thrillers also tend to be pretty surface level and not dive into, you know, harder hitting issues. This book discusses racism, colorism, classism, and in a way that is high stakes, like I said. And I also didn't find it to be predictable at all, which is the last thing that I think YA thrillers often are, is predictable, because they're usually pretty formulaic. But this book does its own thing. It's unique. It is definitely Gossip Girl meets Get Out, which is what it's pitched as. I very much see both of those comparisons and think that if you like one or both of those shows and movies, this is worth picking up. My only criticism, or the only thing holding me back from giving it 5 stars, is that there are a few items, like 3 actual items, that I still have lingering questions about. And again, they're specific items, so if I could like speak to the author directly or get another epilogue or talk to someone about these items and get these questions answered, I think my enjoyment would be like maxed out. It would be a 5 star for sure. And I don't think it's because I just missed them. I just don't think they were answered in the book, and some people will probably like that. I think some people definitely like unanswered questions. I'm someone who really likes concrete answers and explanations. That's my favorite part of mystery thrillers usually, is the ending when I get those answers, but this left me with just a couple questions, and so I'm going to give it 4 stars. But again, worth the hype. Please pick it up. It's a new release. It's so fun and so different, and I'm really glad I read it for this readathon. So with that, I finished 5 books in 7 days, which for me is pretty good, especially with how busy life has been. So to recap, and I think I'll go in order of my least favorite book to my favorite book that I read in the readathon. So my least favorite book that I read is Leave the World Behind. Gave this one 2 stars. And then I think my next least favorite was The Woman in Cabin 10. Not because I hated it, but it was just average, and I found some other really great books. Third place, I'm gonna go with One by One. It was a 4 star and definitely an improvement over The Woman in Cabin 10, but is coming in at 3rd place. I think I'm gonna say my second favorite was The Other Black Girl. Really glad I read that one and appreciate the conversations again that it had. And then my favorite, I'm gonna go with Ace of Spades. I think I ended on the best one, which is always fun. If this has been on your radar but you haven't picked it up yet, this is your sign to go ahead and do so. So those are the 5 books that I finished this week. I had such a fun time, even though I'm not an overly spooky person. I don't love, you know, Halloween in general. I'm not one of those people who like decks out the house and goes all out for Halloween. It's not my favorite holiday, so I didn't have much for Halloween like aesthetics in this vlog. I know that, but I did read some pretty great thrillers, and my thriller owned TBR is at 0, which is something I haven't been able to say since probably 2019 when I started reading again. So that's pretty cool, but means I probably should go out and buy some more, right? But I think that is all I have. So thank you so much for watching this vlog and this video, and I hope that anyone else who participated in Summerween had a lot of fun. And I hope those of you who are Halloween people are getting excited because, you know, time flies. We are nearing the end of summer, which means we are nearing fall, which means we are nearing Halloween season. So I'm happy for you who love that season and are excited for it coming up. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else. So again, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.